We're going to start over here.
Yes,
Great.
Come down.
we need you to turn to us. Turn at the line.
Guys, let's start.
Turn at the line, please. There's a line. There's a line. Get out of here, Yes,
So you know. Yes.
It's all direction. Yeah, yeah. So, würden Sie dann bitte Platz nehmen? Please sit down, camera and photographers, please sit down so we can start the press conference. Dankeschön. Bitte setzen Sie sich, damit wir mit der Pressekonferenz beginnen können. Und ich möchte Sie nochmal darum bitten, während der Pressekonferenz...
Can we please ask all of you not to use flashes?
Press conference. Thank you very much. Dankeschön. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this press conference screening out of competition on the 59th International Film Festival in Berlin, The Reader, and have a welcome for the scriptwriter, David Hare. The author of The Reader, have a welcome for Bernhard Schlink. Four years ago, he was here in Panorama for Knallhart. Now he's back with The Reader. Have a welcome for David Kross. And have a very warm welcome for playing Hannah Schmitz here in Berlin for Kate Winslet. Playing the part of the grown-up Michael. Have a welcome for Ralph Fiennes. And it only seems like hours. Good to have you back here in Berlin. Have a welcome for the director, Daldry. So, ladies and gentlemen, your questions, please. Any questions? Yeah, there's on the left side. Please wait for the microphone.
Hello, Stefan Benz, Darmstädter Echo. Question to Kate Winslet. When you read the book, there is no good answer in it, how it can be that the feeling of shame is bigger than the feeling of guilt for Hannah. But when I see your amazing performance in cinema, I can recognize that there is an inner struggle in Hannah. So what was your subtext to play this war with herself?
Oh, sorry, that was quite loud. Well, for me, you know, I think it was a very complicated experience and process for me playing Hannah, and in many ways, you know, it felt like a huge responsibility. And I wanted to honor the novel, obviously, and I wanted to honor the screenplay. It was a difficult balance. I mean, I think the illiteracy, it forms and shapes and informs us as an audience about who she is in everything. And the shame, of course, that she feels, this unbelievable shame. And her guilt, I think, is something that she herself, she learns about her own guilt, I think, during the trial, but most certainly whilst she is in prison. And it was just a difficult balance for me to find those things. And I think the one thing I felt very strongly about was that whilst I knew that it would be wrong for me to take on the responsibility of trying to humanize her, I did also know that I had to make her a human being. I had to make her a woman who was possible of great love and affection and warmth, as well as the vulnerability and the shame that she feels. And she also had to be a woman who had some level of courage, certainly from the moment that she starts serving her prison sentence. Yeah, I think that sort of answered your question. Thank you.
There's a question on the right side in the back, please.
Hi, this is Carol Guerrero from W Radio in Colombia, and I have a question for Miss Kate Winslet. Kate, how hard was for you to make love scenes with someone who is a little bit younger than you? Just a little bit. And please, a second question for you also. You have a nomination to the Oscars with this film, so how do you feel about it?
It wasn't difficult doing the love scenes with David at all. You know, I think that quite a lot has been made of the love scenes and has been made of David's age. You know, he's 18, he's a young man, and he's extremely professional, and I think absolutely brilliant in the film. And he was, you know, it was for me all about making sure that David understood exactly what was going to be happening whilst we were shooting those scenes, because I've been in the position that I think David was in, really not knowing what it was going to be like, how many people would be in the room whilst we were doing those scenes. But the truth is, at the end of the day, it is part of this job, and it's a very, very important part of this love story. And so we just got on with it, really. And dare I say it, we actually kind of had a laugh. And how I feel about the Oscar, incredibly happy to be nominated, yes.
Question here on the left side, please.
Anne-Christine Loranger, Canada. My question is for Mr. Fiennes. I'm here. Being married to a blonde, blue-eyed German who is about your age and who has to deal with guilt, a humongous amount of guilt, I was wondering how you see this, you portray this character. Because in the book, he never writes to her, and that's a source of pain to her. And he can't. Mr. Schlink doesn't really express that. Maybe you would like to comment also. But as an actor, how do you understand the motivations of this character?
He's in trauma. He's traumatized by what he knows about her. He can't divorce himself from wanting contact, but it's a very one-sided contact. So it's all connected. To what extent should he judge her, condemn her, or understand her? He doesn't want to write a letter to her. He doesn't want that sort of intimacy. But he wants to maintain the contact in the way that I suppose that they did when they were lovers, which is through the reading of books. But Stephen and I, he's conflicted. So to me it was quite clear. He doesn't want to engage with her because of what she's done and everything, all the feelings that her action has provoked in him. But he can't lose her.
Would you like to add, Mr. Schlink?
Ach, es ist wunderbar, einen Schauspieler zu haben.
It's wonderful to have an actor who's really grasped what I was meaning, grasped it so well and expresses it so well.
Michael Berg
Michael Berg is in exactly that situation that Ralph Fiennes just described as well. He's traumatized by the relationship. He's fond of her. He can't give up on her. But at the same time, what happened was such a shock to him that he can't really engage with her in a close communication. Simply impossible for him.
Okay. Question on the right side, please.
Hallo, Mike Platzen, Dreisat, Ken Martino. Ich habe eine Frage an David Kross.
I've got a question for David Kross.
18-Jähriger.
As an 18-year-old, does it seem to you, through attending school and through the media, that you've really been informed properly about the Nazi period? And what role can feature films play in all of this?
Ich antworte jetzt einfach mal auf Deutsch.
Let me answer in German, if I may.
Wir haben das auf jeden Fall in der Schule durchgenommen.
We certainly studied the Nazi period in school, pretty thoroughly as well, which I think is positive, and I think that's something that should be continued into the future as well. When I was preparing for the film, of course, I read a great deal more about the topic, and I wanted to find out more about it as well, because I had a sense of responsibility, in a way. A sense of responsibility for history, and I'm very pleased that this has been turned into a film. And I hope that many of my friends and many people of my generation will have an opportunity to see this film and will think about the issues it raises.
Yes, question here in front, please.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Davide Verrazzani from Italy. I have two questions, one to Kate Winslet. You told before you are incredibly happy for the nomination, but did you expect the nomination for?
Sorry, you're talking about the movie. not about the Oscars. Sorry for that. This is a Berlin festival. Thank you.
It's okay, it's okay. So, no question for Miss Winslet. A question to the director. I'm sorry. A question to the director and the writer, maybe. Why did you choose to tell the story running through the time, back and forward?
I think that's an excellent question for David Hare.
Thank you.
Very well put question.
Because the film is not about the events, it's about the effect of the events on Michael, and it's about the, you know, it's not about the Holocaust, it's about post-war Germany. And so you need to move through time in order to represent the impact of the events on Germany and on the effect of his life. You know, it's been impossible for Michael Berg to live because of the experience that he had, which has been both a great blessing and a great curse in his life. And so I had to give a sense of the passage of time and the profundity of the effect of the event on his life, from which he's only liberated in the last few frames of the film.
I think the other aspect of this is obviously the book is written in the first-person narrative, and so one needs to find a filmic equivalence of the act of writing the book, the act of release in terms of writing and understanding through writing of this story that the character comes to, who's in the first person. And so David came up with the idea of a filmic equivalence. We obviously could have had a man sitting at a typewriter and a little voiceover, but the act of telling seemed to be more important to tell the next generation. So in the act of telling his daughter, it is an act of release.
Question there on the right side, please.
Yeah, hi, Niels from Norway. I got a question for Stephen and a question for Kate. In this year, there are many films dealing with the Holocaust and the impact of it, and the actual event also. Why do you think there are so many Holocaust-based movies right now?
Well, as David just said, I don't think this is a Holocaust movie. It's a movie about post-war Germany. It starts in 1958 and ends in 1995.
Yeah, but it's dealing with the impact of it.
It is, on the generation of Germans that lived after the war. And I think that's the issue of Mr. Schlink's novel, of course, is about the effect of it upon a generation of Germans who were brought up after the war, who were, in a sense, being brought up under a veil of silence, and then what happens with the knowledge when they find that knowledge. Mr. Schlink should talk more about that. I mean, but in terms of, there are many, many films made about the Holocaust, and I hope and assume there will be many more films made about the Holocaust. Most of those films are made from the perspective of the victims, as is right, and very few films are made with perpetrators as dominant characters, and this, in that sense, is a very unusual film, and therefore is bound to elicit a certain amount of controversy.
Sorry, with due respect to all of your colleagues, there are so many interests in asking them. You have one question, please hand it to other colleagues. Please be fair with that.
One quick and good question for Kate. You are the Hollywood actress, Kate, which I have seen naked on the screen most times.
No, that is not a good question, please.
How is it to be exposed in front of the camera now and 10 years ago? What is the difference?
I mean, I think, you know, it's not something one particularly enjoys necessarily. You know, I mean, I think that would be a very honest and fair thing to say. But at the same time, it's sometimes a part of my job. And with this film, you know, I read the novel just coincidentally 6 years ago and was completely transported by it and deeply moved by it, because for me it was a love story. And the intimacy and what Hannah and Michael share and the impact that this relationship has on both of their lives, for the rest of their lives, is enormous. And so of course it would be important that those scenes were a part of this film. It's a part of my job, and I just get on with it.
Thank you. Your question, please, in the middle.
Hello, my name is Nina. I'm coming from Slovenia. Maybe quite not the same question. Ms. Winslet, when we see your performances, we feel how deep you are, this great portrayal of the women. But then if we read the media, you're on the cover of a magazine only stating one sentence, I know how to seduce Leonardo DiCaprio, or for this film we hear Oprah celebrating your naked scenes. How do you feel as an actress putting so much effort and yourself into a role and then being maybe just shown in this particular portrayal in the media?
It's, you know, it's something that you know, you just have to accept that that happens, really. I mean, I can't get frustrated by it or angered by it, because then, you know, then I'm getting angry at celebrity status or something like that. But I don't read anything. I don't read reviews. I don't read magazine articles, interviews that I have given, and we don't keep magazines in our house, and that's how I, quite honestly, remain sane. And I do think that, well, it's true. And I do think that for me, this is a great passion for me, acting. I absolutely love it, and I love my job. And in order for me to be able to do it with a full, open heart and a clear mind, I really can't read about what other people are saying about me. And that's honestly how I operate in this business.
Okay, there's a question on the right side, please. Could you please stand up?
Okay. And I'd like to ask Mr. Bernhard Schlink, and it's a question from Yuki Sato. And what is the impression to see this film? And also, and Michael, the main character, is almost like partially yourself. So what is like that? You know, is that Ray Fiennes and David Kross the plays what you really expected? And also, you know, in the story, you know, Michael read wonderful, beautiful novels like, including the lady with that little dog. So, how did you choose these, you know, novels? Thank you.
Wenn man die Rechte an einem Buch verkauft, darf man nicht erwarten, die eigenen Bilder.
To a book, you can't expect that you'll see the images that you have in your head up there on the screen. There are other images. There's different visions of people, of situations, and the images that I found up there on the screen, I must say I'm very happy with them. They're slightly different from what I had in my own head, but I have to say I'm very contented with what I did see on the screen. As to the books that Michael Berg reads to Hannah Schmitz, we talked about this a great deal, David and Stephen and myself, and eventually came up with the list, which he reads to her.
Okay, question here in front, please.
Okay. Hello, my name is Alejandro. I come from Spain. First of all, I would like to thank to have made such a moving film. I have never cried in a cinema so much. Well, I would like to make maybe the $1 million question. Is this book based on personal experience or someone who have you known? It's the right.
Jedes Buch ist auf persönliche
Every book is based on personal experience.
Also auch dieses.
This book as well.
A question? Yeah. It's your question. Please stand up.
There'll be no subsequent questions to that.
So can I ask?
Yeah, try.
I'm Sandra from Serbian TV. Question for the Kate. How did you connect to the feelings of war and post-war generation? And the question for Mr. Fiennes, we are expecting you in Belgrade with the reader. And when do you plan to start shooting of your new project, Shakespeare Coriolanus? Thank you.
When I started preparing for the film, I realized that what I knew about post-war Germany and indeed the war itself, I didn't know enough. And I certainly didn't know enough about the role of an SS guard. So I really immersed myself in that material to educate myself better and just to gain greater knowledge and have a deeper understanding of my character and the situation that she was in. But the majority of the preparation that I felt it necessary to do was actually to do with the illiteracy, with Hannah's illiteracy. That seemed to be more important to me than anything else. That and also trying to perfect as perfect German accent as I could.
Yes, I will be in Belgrade in 2 weeks for the reader at the Belgrade Film Festival. As you know, I've been on location scout in Serbia twice now. We had hoped to be filming now, but this current credit crisis, global financial crisis, our financing fell away at the end of last year. I hope to be in pre-production in Serbia by the end of this year.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Your question, please.
Hi, Uffe Steeman from Denmark. This is for Kate Winslet. You're always a joy to see on the screen. This time, and also in Revolutionary Road, which are two great films up at the same time nearly. In Revolutionary Road, you were directed by your husband, Sam Mendes, and this one directed by Stephen Daldry. Could you tell me something about differences, advantages, disadvantages with being directed by your husband and then now being directed by Stephen Daldry? Thank you.
So is the question, what was it like to work with my husband or not? Just trying to, yeah, well done. Nice try. I never like comparing directors because they are all so completely different, and visually I always find that directors want so many different things from the film itself and the experience, but from each individual actor. I would say if there were a similarity between Sam and Stephen, is that their background in theatre means that they have a great love of actors. They both absolutely love the company of actors. Right, Stephen? And as a consequence, one feels really rather adored by these people. And I'm now going to start talking about Stephen. But that's what it was like. Stephen really did provide a framework for not just the cast, but for the crew also to work in, whereby everybody felt equally important and just as included as everyone else. And no idea was ever a bad idea, and everything could be up for discussion. And there were no right or wrong answers. And you always have to, as an actor, that's the environment that you dream to work within, because you know that the possibilities can be endless. And it's a wonderful thing to walk onto a film set and to be surprised by not just your director, but by the character that you're playing as a result of the direction that you are being given. And that happened absolutely on the reader working with Stephen.
Your question, please.
Welt Express TV. A question for Kate and for Stephen. Hannah had, in the beginning of the movie, Hannah displayed a certain amount of anger, which I could never quite explain. A certain amount of anger before we knew, was this due to shame? Was this due to guilt? Was this due to the fact that Hannah couldn't read? Where did the anger come from? Was this your own personal interpretation, or did this come from Mr. Daldry?
I think both Mr. Bernhard Schlink, Kate and myself did a huge amount of research on the behavioural patterns of illiterate people in terms of guarding their secret and how that secret could be defended. Anger as part of that armour of defence. What do you think, Bernhard? Hannah has many attributes and many things at her disposal to defend herself, anger being one of them. Would you agree?
Ich fand in Kate Winslets Darstellung der Rolle.
In Kate Winslet's depiction of the role, you're referring to the start of the film, aren't you? I don't think it was actually anger as such. I think she was a bit brusque. She was a bit rough. And that, I think, is part and parcel of her character. She has this brusque side to her character, but at other times she's also gentle and warm. That's another facet of her character. She's sometimes fearful and sometimes she's bruteful. That's the whole spectrum of her character. But I don't think she was angry or irritated. I think she was rough and brusque.
Question here on the left, please.
I'm Harry Segit of the African Refugee News. I have two questions, one for Mr. Fiennes and the other for the scriptwriter. How difficult was for you to make the second part of the film when there was just a great actor like this guy that made really a big part in the film? Did you find difficulties to get in the character of young Michael?
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
No, I mean, no more than any part is difficult. Stephen and David and I, we talked a lot about the life of Michael. I mean, the great thing about playing the older Michael is already the backstory is there. Often you come to parts that you might start a character at the age of 30 and you have to imagine for yourself their past history. But I had on a plate, as it were, all of the younger Michael's life and was able to watch some of the footage of David's scenes before I started filming. And we worked together with Stephen and David to create a sense of him. So it didn't feel any difficult than starting any other part.
Yes, if you're asking was the last part of the film the most difficult to write, clearly it was. You know, the trial material is obviously so incredibly dramatic, and it's so brilliantly written for you in the book. But obviously creating the structure to make the last third of the film as compelling as the rest of the film, yeah, that's much the most difficult part of the screenwriting, because you're revealing the fact that she's illiterate, you're sending her to prison, you're doing a 20-year period, and you're trying to write about the impact of the events on the man's life and this strange use of reading books as a way of both communicating and, as somebody correctly said, failing to communicate, i.e. he doesn't write to her, although she writes to him. So it's much the most complicated and much the most difficult part of the screenplay. But I always knew we were heading towards a climax, although the lovers part, which in a conventional story they don't. In other words, one would expect of a love story that they come closer together, but on the contrary, he can't deal with her when he sees her. But I was always heading, obviously, towards that scene with Lena Olin that would provide the climax, both thematically and narratively, about the impact of the events on Michael's life.
Okay. Question on the left side, please. Could you stand up? Yeah, it's you with the microphone.
I'm Dana Grigorcea from the Romanian TV channel Realitatea, and I have a question for Mr. Schlink. Herr Schlink, Milan Kundera, dessen Buch Die unerträgliche Leichtigkeit des Seins auch sehr schön verfilmt wurde, hat sich sehr
turned into a very lovely film. Distanced himself a great deal from the film adaptation of his book. He said that the film version of The Unbearable Lightness of Being had little to do with the book. You admitted too that the film had different images than those you had in your head when you were writing. Why are you then here with the actors at this press conference? Well, I'm not distancing myself from the film at all. The film is certainly somewhat different. There are different images, but they're images and scenes which were created based on the subject matter, the substance of my book. And if a good director and a good scriptwriter and a magnificent cast take this subject matter and cast it into a new shape, I think that's wonderful. Why on earth should I distance myself from it? I can't imagine why.
So, sad but true, last question here in front.
Hi, this is Ahmed from Turkish Daily Radical. My question will go to Herrn Schlink. It's really a great film. Thank you all for everything. What really disturbed me a little bit, just a little bit, was Germans talking English and even reading English. How did you react when you saw the film for the first time?
Nun, das hat mich ja nicht überrascht.
Das wusste ich. I knew that that was going to be that way.
Ich wollte immer, dass es ein internationaler Film
I always wanted it to be an international film.
Englisch ist nun mal die Lingua
And
franca
English is, after all,
Zeit.
the lingua franca of our
Und
age.
deswegen ist ein
And therefore,
internationaler Film einer, in
an
dem
international
auch
film is the one
deutsches
in which
Englisch gesprochen wird.
German English
Das
could
hat
be
mich nicht
spoken as well. It didn't bother
Das hatte
me.
ich nun wirklich erwartet.
I really was
Und das hat
expecting
seine
that that's the way it would be, and there's something quite correct about that
And
approach
we were
too.
happy to have this international movie, The Reader, here on this International Film Festival. Thank you for all being here. Thanks for The Reader.